You're very welcome. My name's Jane Gribben. I'm the Community Engagement Manager with Volunteer Now, and I'm delighted that you've joined us today. This session is on recognising volunteers, campaigns and more, and it focuses on how we can recognise and celebrate volunteers and volunteering in Northern Ireland. And we also have a few members from across the water, which is great, and hopefully we'll have a learn from their own experiences as well. But I'm also delighted that we've got Breda, Sonia and Kiva who have joined us to share their own experiences in terms of how they have recognised volunteers, particularly throughout the pandemic, and I'm thinking about the way forward as well. For those who attend our sessions, and there's quite a few people who are regular attenders here, so you'll know that these meetings are about sharing your experiences and participating and learning from each other. So it's a great opportunity to ask the questions from Breda, Kiva and Sonia, but also then to share your own experiences and what you've been doing and what you're thinking about doing in the future, just to see what we can learn and glean from each other. We'll do introductions in a wee minute or two, but I just also want to sort of to highlight that at a national level, there's also been a lot of discussions around recognition and how it's undertaken. And it's also fair to say that the pandemic has changed those conversations, you know, so that the amount of face-to-face big celebration events have gone. There's been a few over this last few months, but certainly not to the extent that they've been happening before, and not in the same way as have happened before. You know, not so long ago we had our Millennium Volunteer celebrations where we would have squeezed 600 people into one room and they would have been sardines, and those, you know, that won't happen again. But so we've embraced it. It's fair to say that organisations have embraced that change and done different things. And you may have also heard of the Month of Community that happened in June. So it followed on from Volunteers Week, which is our UK national celebration of volunteering. But Month of Community followed on from it, which is the Eden Project initiative, and then it culminated in the Thank You Day on the 4th of July. Which was pioneered by the Together Coalition, and then also International Volunteers Days on the 5th of December. But there's been talks about moving Volunteers Week for next year, because it coincides with the Jubilee. And there's other initiatives that have popped up over this last while, like the Belfast Coin, which Tracy might know more about in East Belfast, and our own platform, the Be Collective platform, also has an ability to recognise, reward and incentivise participation if you are a BC Plus user of it. So there's lots of things there. So hopefully we'll have a good discussion today, and I'm going to do a wee round of introductions now. So if you'd just like to say your name and where you're from, that would be great, just to give people an idea of who's around the room. So I'll go from around my screen and hopefully people won't jump about, but I'll start with Andrew.
Hi everyone, my name's Andrew. I work for Volunteer Now as Research and Information Officer, so involved in different bits and bobs regarding research, updating the publication section on our website, and sort of coordinating these vote sessions. So nice to meet you all.
Okay, great, thank you. Kiva?
I think there's a couple of Kivas.
Oh, Kiva from Rock and I.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kiva from Redeeming Our Communities, and I'm the National Northern Ireland Development Manager. Work right across Northern Ireland.
Thanks, Kiva. And Breda? Breda, you're on mute, Breda.
Good morning, I'm Breda McGranahan from Cancer Connect ANI in Enniskillen.
Thank you. Emma Thompson.
Hi, I'm Emma. I'm the Volunteering Development Officer for Marie Curie Northern Ireland.
And Kelly.
Hi, I'm from the UK, from Leeds. I'm Kelly. Nice to meet you.
Great, thank you. Elaine.
Yeah, I'm Elaine Sheridan, Volunteer Manager for Mindwise. Nice to see everybody.
Thank you. And Liz.
Hi everybody, I'm Liz from Dogs for Good over the water in Oxfordshire.
Yeah, it's quite exciting for me. I'm fairly new to my role, and I just heard about this session last week at an Association of Volunteer Managers group. So hi.
Great, thank you. And Kiva McCann.
Yeah, I'm Kiwi, and I work for Mirrors Media UK.
Great, thank you, Kiva. And moved Sonia.
Hi, it's Sonia Johnson, and I manage the Connect Fermanagh service based in Fermanagh. It's like a befriending telephone support service.
Thank you, Sonia. And Kiva, Cregan.
Yeah, my name is Kiva. I'm the volunteer coordinator for Extern.
Thank you. And Matthew.
Yes, I'm also from Extern, Matthew McCreary. Excuse me, I'm the PR and Communications Officer for Extern, so I would work with Kiva on our volunteering campaign.
Great, thank you. Rhonda?
I'm the Volunteering and Community Officer for the National Trust in Mid-Ulster, but we cover like from Strabane right down to near Newry. So
it's a wide area, isn't it? And Ian?
Hi everyone, I'm Ian, I'm the volunteer manager with Praxis Care, and I cover the island of Ireland, the Isle of Man and parts of England.
Great, thank you. And Tracy?
Hi, I'm Tracy Mooney and I work for Belfast City Council, and I'm here because I have a volunteer celebration event in December, so I'm looking for ideas.
Hopefully we can help, Tracy. Emma, Kay? No. Okay. Deborah?
I'm Deborah and I work at Volunteer Now. I'm in administration and mostly take the bookings for the various courses.
Thank you, Deborah. And Sharon?
Hi, I manage the volunteers for Macmillan in Northern Ireland.
Thank you. Louise? Louise Donnelly,
yeah. Sorry, you keep going really quiet then, and I was like
Sorry,
struggling
am I?
when my name is coming up. I'm a community support officer for MenCap covering the southwest. So I'm only directly managing one volunteer, but now our clubs are starting to go back into action, you know, when they've been sort of on COVID hibernation for a while. So I'm here to maybe be able to help with their supporting the clubs that are affiliated to us.
Thank you. And Catherine?
Hi there, I'm Catherine Muldoon and I'm the coordinator for Breastival and Baby Grow, which is a festival supporting, celebrating, normalising breastfeeding and a virtual community centre.
That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. I haven't missed anybody out, have I? No, I don't think so. That's great. So I'm going to hand over to Sonia first, if that's okay. Busy writing. Just to share your own experiences and how you've recognised your volunteers this year.
Grand, Jane. As you know, I've been sort of roped into this by my sister at the very last minute. So, Connect Fermanagh itself was a service that was developed as a response in Fermanagh to the pandemic, basically. So we're quite new and only really established around last February, March. So our volunteers really were recruited at kind of the height of the pandemic. Our volunteers were really passionate people in the local community who really wanted to make a difference, weren't sure what to do. We set up a telephone befriending line, so it's sort of for residents in Fermanagh and our volunteers or folk that are resident in Fermanagh, because we acknowledge it was kind of important to have people who had the same sort of local knowledge, because a lot of the people that we called were older people. So I suppose for us, in terms of acknowledging our volunteers, these are people that were giving their time to us for free to help others. So we felt as a team in Fermanagh Trust that it's really important to value those people for giving their time and acknowledge the fact that they're giving it for free, and to say thank you. And really for us, you know, there's a number of reasons why that's important, because ultimately you want people to feel valued, but also you want to retain people. So we're very, very conscious that, you know, the pandemic, yes, we're still within that and there are still restrictions and there are still restrictions on work, but people's lives are starting to go back to some sort of normality. So it was a case of when we had people furloughed and we had people with lots of extra time in their hand, they might not have that any longer. So in terms of for us, it was about retaining the skills and the knowledge and the experience. And we had invested time in training those people in that. So for us, it's really important to, one, acknowledge and thank, but also for us as an organisation to retain those skills and experience and thinking about how we do that and do that properly. So we do that really in a number of ways. And I suppose for us, it's thinking about why do people get involved in volunteering in the first place. So whether it was to meet new people or to have like a new kind of social circle, or because they were feeling a bit bored or isolated themselves, or because they wanted something on their CV, because they wanted to enhance their own skills or work, or do something for their career. So it's important to think about sort of all the reasons why people got involved in volunteering in the first place, and then to try and in some way kind of respond to those needs. And in the pandemic, obviously, because we couldn't go out and bring volunteers together and have groups, we had to kind of be creative about other ways. So some of the ways I suppose to share with you is that we have worked in the last year. The first thing that we do, which is quite simple, is a fortnightly newsletter, which is emailed out to all our volunteers. So that newsletter sort of does a lot of things. So the first thing would be is thanking people and acknowledging, the time and the commitment. The second thing we put in that is a sort of an update on where things are at, so that they feel part of the bigger picture, because I think it's important that they're doing their wee piece, and because of the pandemic, they're kind of a wee bit isolated, maybe doing it from home, so that they know the overall value of what we're doing and the numbers of people that we're working with and kind of the good outcomes and things. So we share that with them. What I would also do is share any training opportunities, so any kind of workshops or any training opportunities or any wee online Zooms or things or sessions or fun stuff in the local community that I think would be of interest. Because we're a befriending service, I tend to share them things about self-care and about mental health workshops and about maybe safeguarding vulnerable adults, those kind of things that I think that would be of interest and are of interest to us, because that enhances their skills and it keeps them motivated. And for those that upskilling and a career progression is important too, then that's important that they get and see those opportunities. What I also do is there's always like a little positive quote or a little comment or something, that I'll share a little story about, the starfish, you throw one back in the sea and the difference that you can make in the life of somebody. So just that way kind of upbeat, positive quote. So that's quite simple and that's quite straightforward. So that's a fortnightly updated newsletter on what's going on. Other things that we would do is celebrate individual volunteers on our social media. So looking for volunteers who are happy to do like a little individual profile about and with their photographs. So for those that like a wee bit of recognition wider, because I think sometimes some of us like that kind of, people knowing what we're doing, and that works really well for some people. So getting their photograph out there in the community and telling people about why they got involved. So it helps them and it makes them feel valued and a wee bit of kind of a good feel about what they're doing, and other people recognize them. So it gives them an opportunity to share what they're doing and why they did it. It also works for us in that it promotes volunteering. So it promotes, the thinking in other people in the wider community about, oh, maybe I'd like to get involved. So we would see that as a publicity opportunity as well. So we do that. We also would send cards to volunteers. So that sounds a bit sort of simple, but it's actually really important. So if there's a volunteer who's had a bereavement, to send a sympathy card and acknowledge that, or if they've got a significant celebration in the house, it's a big anniversary. We don't do it for every wedding anniversary, but it's a big golden wedding anniversary, or there's something really significant that's happening in their lives, or they're ill, and we've had volunteers who have been diagnosed with cancer. We've had volunteers who've had heart conditions and had to get treatment. I think it's really important to acknowledge that and at least send a wee card, or I've nipped out to the house with a bunch of flowers just to say, look, we value enough to take some time to acknowledge that you're going through a hard time. Also look for opportunities in the calendar. So Christmas or Volunteers Week, those kind of theme times, I suppose that it's important, and it gives you an opportunity to kind of go the extra mile. So last Christmas, when we couldn't bring people together for coffee mornings or a lunch or something or a day out, what I did was literally pack little goodie bags, and they didn't have to be expensive. I kind of had £3 or £4. I was able to go to B&M and get like a little diary, a little box of sweets, a little hand cream, and put them in a wee gift bag, make a personalised card and go to their house and knock a door and leave that at the door and step back, so that they felt me taking the time out of my day to go and drive to all ends. It took me 2 full days because our volunteers were spread everywhere and I was lost, but it was great. But they felt so thrilled that I took the time out to go to their house. It was such a big thing. So that personal touch of a personalised card, and we made up our own Connect Fermanagh cards and personalised those. So that was something. And in Volunteer Week, Lynn from Volunteer Now was able to get some money to buy some afternoon teas for volunteers, so we were able to tap in and get some of those afternoon teas. So we were able to bring volunteers in one by one. So I had little drop-in times for each one of them. They were able to drop into Fermanagh House and have a cup of tea with them as an individual and give them an afternoon tea to go off and share with some of their family or their friends. So that was a really lovely big thing. Looking forward, as we're sort of coming out of the restrictions and we can start bringing groups of people together, what we're planning to do is have a coffee morning or a light lunch. So two parts. One, again, to say thank you and to give those who really enjoy the social aspect an opportunity to meet with other volunteers and share their experiences and their laughs and what they find difficult. But also for us, it's an opportunity for us to chat to them about their experiences and learn from that in terms of shaping our volunteer procedures and things going forward. So what have they enjoyed or not? What's been a challenge? You know, and what worked for them in terms of us valuing them and what they want to see going forward. So that's something we are planning to do. Socially distance. We're quite lucky that we've got large rooms in Fermanagh House and we've got large green area outside, so we should be able to do that in a safe way. So that's going forward. And what we also do is give our volunteers opportunities to sit on our board. So we have a couple of our volunteers who now actually sit on our board as a treasurer and secretary and chairperson. So they are really there using the knowledge and experience of their volunteering to shape the service going forward. So that's kind of where we're at. Don't have anything else to share, but I hope that sort of gives you a flavour of what we're at.
That's great, Sonia. Yes, perfect. Thank you very much. Sorry, I was forgetting to unmute again. Yes, no, thank you very much. Great, thank you. We'll move on to Kiva, please.
Yeah. Thanks, Jen. Yes, so I work for ROC, Redeeming Our Communities, and we have action groups right across Northern Ireland. And one of our action groups in Larne, in Mid and East Antrim, I wanted just to say thank you to those volunteers who work with children and young people, particularly over the challenges of the past year. So we held a one-off. So this is very different to what Sonia did. We held a one-off event just a couple of weeks ago, and right in the middle of COVID really hitting Larne. So it was a bit of a logistical nightmare and an added challenge. But what our event did was we invited all those volunteers as well as paid staff, youth workers who are working in the Larne area with children and young people. So we sent out invitations to them to this one-off event, which was an hour and a half. We did it outdoors in the car park near the YMCA. And the whole ethos of the thing was to say thank you, to show that volunteers and staff are appreciated and valued, and have a bit of fun and time together and food. So they're all the key ingredients for any volunteer event. So we did that. So we had probably about 30 folks, over 30 folks joined together on the Saturday afternoon. We had arranged activities from Pathways Adventure Activities, who came and brought just to give our volunteers time together and just a bit of crack and a bit of fun. So there was a very competitive interactive game, some archery and BB gun shooting, which really took out the competitiveness of everybody. We had food boxes that from the local business provided, so that helped with the whole COVID thing. We afternoon tea. We also had invited the local mayor to join us, and he did a speech and just to show their appreciation for the volunteers. And we presented every volunteer with a certificate and a little voucher for one of the local cafes for a coffee and a treat. Which was really appreciated. And I think for everybody who gathered together, they just felt valued. And I was chatting to a volunteer yesterday and she was still talking about that event. She says it was really good. And she says, and I asked her, have you enjoyed your voucher yet? And she says, we did. And she said, it was lovely. And just to do something and to support a local business as well. So yeah, the event we hope will now be an annual basis. We got funding from the council. They had Mid and East Antrim Council do have a small events funding grant that you can apply for, which covered the costs of the activities, the food, as well as project management and even the little gifts as well. So which was really good. We held everything outdoors. It did rain a wee bit, but it was just good just to bring people together. And we do hope that we can do this again. So yeah, that was what we did.
Great, thank you very much, Kiva. Yes, very different, as you say, from Sonia's, but yeah, really good. And really, I suppose, brave, as some people might say, it's brave to do that outside in our weather. But
we had, yes, but it was also with the temperature checks, hand sanitizer everywhere, and just trying our best. But yeah, umbrellas at the ready.
Umbrellas at the ready, yes. Great, thank you. And Breda?
I'm from Cancer Connect in Enniskillen, and that's a cancer support centre here. We found it quite difficult during COVID because the majority of our volunteers are cancer clients who have been on a journey and different a number of years post that. So we had to be very careful because a lot of them had got letters to shield. And so maybe I'll start pre the COVID and what we would have done for our volunteers. We're blessed here in Fermanagh with lovely waterways, and we were able to take the Manor House Hotel boat out and have afternoon tea. Well, and we got a guided tour of the waterways and the islands, and the hotel went all out with their lovely crisp linen cloth, tablecloths and napkins for us, so it was a beautiful occasion. Also, we would have, say, 12 core volunteers in the centre, but we can have up to 80 or 90, and that would include the school children for an event we do here, Winter Wonderland event. And it's like a Santa and a train ride and journey. So we always acknowledge afterwards with, again, a get together. This was, as I say, pre-COVID, and entertainment and food around that. We were very fortunate pre-COVID as well to win the Queen's Award for volunteering. So that turned out a lovely evening. We actually collected the volunteers on our train, and they got a train journey to the Killyhevlin Hotel, where we had an evening of, again, entertainment and beautiful food. And Lord Brookborough spoke and handed over the award that evening. So through the COVID, a bit like Sonia was saying there, we really do look after our volunteers, and we have a WhatsApp group. We have a number actually sick at the moment, and they receive, and again, I go out to the house safely and just door deliver hampers or nice hampers as regards beauty and organic items, or bunches of flowers and cards, just to acknowledge and thank. And we were very fortunate to link in with Lynn again and her generosity around the afternoon tea boxes. And I personally picked them up and went to each individual volunteer to their door. And again, just to acknowledge, because they are very treasured volunteers. We also at Christmas do just an evening out, and again we book a local restaurant here, and that's an annual event, and we give little bag gifts and tokens at that as well. So that's really, as I say, it has been difficult during COVID, but I suppose we use the waterways a lot as well. So we use the boats, and there's various boats for hiring, and most of the volunteers like that idea. So apart from that, I don't think there's anything else that I can think of at the moment. So that's what has been happening, and we hope to do a lot more in the future, and probably more outdoors maybe come the springtime again. But it's, as I say, it's very difficult with our core team, because we have to be very mindful of their past history and ensure that they are kept safe and well, which is our priority.
That's great, Breda. Thank you very much. Thank you. And yes, I think it's been difficult for a lot of charities who have vulnerable volunteers in terms of how they engage them and how they support them, but then how they recognise them, and then the new volunteers or other volunteers that are coming in to make sure that it's, I suppose, it's been fair and equitable in relation to that recognition for those that can get out and can't get out. But thank you to Sonia and Kiva and Breda for sharing those different examples and different ways of doing things. I really appreciate it. Does anybody have any questions or any comments, anything they'd like to share in terms of what they do themselves? Liz?
I just wanted to ask if anybody's got experience of sort of recognising larger numbers of volunteers. So we've got sort of around sort of 550 volunteers spread across the country, and we really sort of only have one building in Oxfordshire. So we've been sort of, obviously with the pandemic anyway, but been sort of switching to sort of online meetings and sort of celebrations and certificates. I just but obviously trying not to lose the personal touch. Previously we were able to have little get-togethers with smaller groups, but I just wondered if anyone had experience of recognising sort of larger numbers in any sort of different and exciting ways.
Anybody?
I think for us, like we're like across the UK, and like during the obviously during the height of the pandemic, people weren't able to get out and do the volunteering that they usually do. So the team just had like every kind of staff member was given like a list of people to phone, like even if it wasn't, like in their area, so I could be phoning somebody, in the south of England. And it was just literally being like, this is what we're doing for the week. We're just phoning everybody up to say thank you. How are you getting on? And they really liked that it was, it wasn't like in your area, it was anywhere, so it was a really good response that they were kind of like, oh, you're actually taking the time out to do that sort of thing.
Thank you.
That's really nice. Liz, I've heard of other organisations. Sorry, Matthew, do you want to come in? No. I've heard of other organisations doing Zoom type events where they have had large numbers on Zoom, and then they have done out the breakout rooms and they have done different activities. So they have brought different people in to do different activities on Zoom or another platform like Zoom. There are others that exist, but have done different things like that. So they have done like health and wellbeing sessions, and they've invited large numbers on. So people have dipped into what they've enjoyed doing. It's a bit like what Kiva and Sonia were saying in terms of, people will turn up if they like those different types of activities, or, if they like those different types of things. So, but they've done a series of those to engage as many people, or invited them all on to one big session at one time, and then just done like quizzes or done in breakout rooms, done different types of activities just to acknowledge and thank them. So, and they have found that that's worked really well because they get to meet different people, and the breakout rooms can be quite small. So they found that worked really well for them. Tracy, do you want to share what you're thinking of doing in December?
We're hoping to do like a Zoom event. And I suppose for me, it's trying to get that interactive thing, because let's be honest, everybody's teamed out and Zoomed out, and I'm sort of sitting here now talking at a laptop, and I miss that. I think the thing with the events is it's that human element, and people feeling connected and part of something bigger. So we're looking at sort of how we can try and make it interactive so that people feel they are contributing to something. And because we're Belfast City Council and it has to be all very formal and bureaucratic, we're going to hopefully have the Lord Mayor and have Denise as well speaking. But we're also hoping to feature some videos of volunteers talking about their experiences over the last 18 months, just as a kind of the personal side of it. And I think I'm interested to hear how people feel COVID has changed how they volunteer and how people see volunteers now as well. So I suppose from a kind of statutory point of view, get a bit of a sense of where we might need to go in terms of our support around volunteering, and supporting organisations who are engaging volunteers, because we have our own volunteers, most of whom, I love that phrase, COVID hibernation, have gone into COVID hibernation and are now starting to come out of that and return to our services. And what we kind of need to think about in terms of our engagement with them, because they have been disconnected from us and we don't have a volunteer coordinator to do that kind of personal keeping in touch thing. So, but the event also, you want it to be fun. We're planning to do it around the 7th of December to kind of coincide with International Volunteers Day. And it is at the minute just trying to work out what is possible for us.
Okay. Yes. Yes. It's very difficult, and I think I always remember we did consultation with volunteers in terms of how they'd like to be recognised with an older people's project that we had, and the differences of opinion there in terms of, you know, there was a group of older ladies who used to have competitions in terms of the number of certificates that they used to get. And it used to be like you know, well, how many did you get? And I've got this many this year, and, you know, and they loved it. And they used to have them all sitting. There was not enough room in their houses for them all to be put up, but they used to have, you know, them all sitting so that they could show them off whenever they come in. And then another lady just said, well, what do I want a piece of paper like that for? And it goes into her blue bin as soon as she gets it. And I think it is about asking the question, though. It's about asking the question of your volunteers going, how would you like to be recognised? You know, what is meaningful to you as a volunteer? And then working around something that meets the majority of those needs, knowing that you're not going to satisfy everybody, but that people feel recognised and feel appreciated. And I think that's really important in terms of what Kiva and Sonia and Breda was saying, in terms of people being valued and knowing that their contribution was really meaningful. In terms of some of the research that's been coming out, volunteers have been saying that they want to know what difference they're making as a volunteer. They want to know that they're being valued, but that they're what their contribution is making, both to the lives of those that they're supporting, but also to the organisation. So it's important that that is communicated in some way. And I like Sonia's idea of the newsletter that goes out, you know, saying that, even if it's once or twice a year, that you're able to say, you know, you have the quotes from those people who are supported, having, you know, even a monetary value in terms of the difference that volunteers make to the organisation, but also then the services that are able to be delivered as a result of volunteers. And then those human connections that are made as well too, in terms of that impact. Volunteers are also telling us that they want that kind of short-term, that quick fix gratification, so that, you know, they're not there for a lifetime maybe that they used to be in the past, but so if they're there for 6 months, or if they're given their commitment for less than that, then they want to know, if they're an event volunteer and they come and do a day, you know, for the likes of Breda's events, that they want to know, well, you know, they want to know there and then that they're making a difference. So it is all about having those wee thought processes in your head and your planning, whenever you're planning your volunteer participation and involvement, that you have that recognition put into that planning stage. Yes, Ian.
Thanks, Jane. No, just to echo what you said and going back to what Tracy was saying, I suppose, Tracy, have you did you ask your volunteers if a Zoom event is what they wanted, or have you just gone ahead with that? It's just, I've been finding trying to interact with our volunteers through any sort of online sort of platform, whether it be training or events, has sort of gone down like a lead balloon. So we haven't even pursued it because we didn't want to put all that effort in for nobody to come along. So I just wondered, have you had that positive feedback from your volunteers, or are you just going for it?
Well, I suppose we're slightly different in that ours isn't focusing on our own volunteers. It's actually trying to recognise the contribution of older volunteers for a range of organisations, fingers crossed, across the city. So we normally, pre-COVID, would have run our older volunteer awards, and we didn't last year because COVID there was no point in trying to do anything. This year we felt, well, we don't want to leave it another year, but we don't want to do an awards scheme, but we want to do something that says we recognise that people have been donating their time, and we want to say thank you on behalf of the city. So we did originally think about doing it as a bit of a hybrid event where we would have, it would be online, but people could come together, perhaps within their organisation or within maybe a local community building and watch the event, and we would provide little afternoon tea boxes. But given that we're the council and we move very slowly and everything has to be agreed 6 months in advance, we decided, because we didn't have any certainty about being able to do that, we would just take it online. So we just went down the route of Zoom. And I suppose it is that idea of us as an organisation saying, look, we recognise the contribution that's being made and has been made, and we just want to have an opportunity to say on behalf of the city to those older volunteers, we recognise what you do and we want to say thank you on behalf of the city and also on behalf of your organisation, because that would have been the idea behind the Older Volunteer Awards. But I mean, the thing is, if we're thinking about recognising and celebrating volunteers, because each individual volunteer has their own motivation and has, you know, their own idea about what is of value to them, it's trying to, I think for me, think of different ways at different points in the year to formally recognise volunteers, but also think about how do you keep volunteers feeling what I'm doing is A, valued, and B, making a difference. And that is about planning and thinking about, yeah, we will have a newsletter. Yes, we will have less big formal get-togethers, but we'll do the big formal get-togethers. We'll do certificates. Yeah, not everybody wants a certificate, but there are people who love a certificate. There are people who will want to have the WhatsApp group, and there'll be other people who prefer to be telephoned, and there'll be people who much prefer to have a sit down and cup of coffee and a chocolate biscuit and have a chat about how things are with them. So it's about sort of trying to have a cocktail in terms of how you're engaging with your volunteers and giving them, all of them, at least one opportunity to feel valued, whether that's with a certificate, a cup of coffee, being part of a WhatsApp group, or getting a newsletter, you know, or a card. It's all those little things that go together. It's a lot of work.
No, I totally get that, because some of you know me anyway. You know, I've been around the block with volunteering for quite a few years. So, but no, and I think to reiterate what you just said, I think sometimes the important thing is, even if you invite people to things or you include them in things, whether they want that certificate or not, or whether they come to the event, I think that is a big part of it, that they get that invite or they get that phone call to say, we're having this event, or would you like this or would you like that, rather than just sort of splitting it and sort of saying, well, we know those people only want a certificate, so they'll only get the certificate. I think you have to include people. I mean, one of the things we've tried to do this year over the summer, one of our projects, we're trying to you know, find out what the impact volunteering has been having on them and their service users and the wider community. So we invited, I think, 20 plus volunteers to an outdoor sort of open forum where we provided a bit of lunch for people and just said, look, we want your feedback and we just want to have a couple of hours with you outside and just chat this through in a safe way. And we only had 3 people respond and come along out of about 20 people, but just to get those 3 people to come along and interact with them in person, I think, you know, whilst it wasn't a celebration event per se, I think the fact that they were invited to something and their input was wanted and we wanted to include them, I think was a big part of it, where we can't have those events. So yeah, but I probably, like a lot of us, you know, I echo what everyone else has been saying. You know, we're doing similar things in terms of regular newsletters and trying to sort of deliver things if we can by person, if we can't have events. So but no, I was just interested, Tracy, you know, with Zoom, it's fallen flat with our volunteers. It doesn't seem to have taken off, unfortunately, but hopefully that won't be the case next year if we're trying to do things, even if it's on a small scale.
Thank you, Ian. Elaine, can I come to you as an organisation who has a considerable number of volunteers, but again, in different areas throughout Northern Ireland? Have you any experiences to share?
Yes, certainly. Traditionally, we would have very much been face-to-face. You know, we would have had our volunteer away day during Volunteers Week in June, which was well attended. And then we would have had our volunteer awards normally in September alongside our AGM. So last year we did a wee bit of a review of reward and recognition and went out to volunteers and actually asked them as well as staff. So we introduced last year in the June our length of service badges, which have gone down really, really well. So we have 1, 3 and 5 years, so gold, silver and bronze. So the first tranche of those went out last June and then again in December and then this year. To the point where actually we've now introduced that for staff as well for this year. So that's been something that's really positive. And alongside that is a letter from the Chief Executive whenever those badges go out. We started an online newsletter and that goes out monthly and we've continued that. And we actually get stories in from volunteers themselves, or it could be a wee photograph from an art group they're doing or a walking group. So that input's really, really important. We also then, we did a virtual volunteer awards and we actually did it in December last year. It wasn't great, to be honest. I mean, it was staff and volunteers and the feedback from volunteers, like we really want the face-to-face stuff. So we actually are planning a face-to-face awards for December this year. We're all very excited, but very anxious about it too. So it's going to be held in the Duncilly Hotel in Antrim, because again, it's a bit of a central point for a lot of our services. That's going to be an afternoon for staff and volunteers as a bit of a thank you and a wellness event as well. We're going to have a lunch and then a bit of an activity for people to do together, and then the awards section. So kind of 12 to 3 is what we're planning. We're trying to get an audiovisual company to actually do the Zoom part of it as well, so that for those people that can't join in, so that they'll be able to join in virtually. We have a lot of housing services that work 24/7. So there is always staff that cannot attend these things. And again, we have some service user volunteers that maybe just wouldn't be as comfortable coming out physically again. So that's kind of what we're doing. We'll do the length of service badges where we'll actually present those on the day as well. We did think about wellness packs and everything, but with budgets, I mean, the face-to-face event itself is going to cost quite a bit. So we're going to run with that. As part of Volunteers Week, we did videos as well last year, and we'll try and do those again for the actual event in December. Just 30 seconds. I'm such and such, and I manage a photography group, all of that. And we'll try and get staff here making the nominations to do a little video as well. So we're doing lots. I think when you write it all down, you know, it sometimes feels like we're not seeing people as much, but we are doing a lot throughout the year. Feedback is very much like we love to see people locally. So I think going forward for next year, we will try and do those local get-togethers with services. We do like a quarterly Zoom meeting as well. So it's like a wee check-in with volunteers. And I was actually quite surprised when I did it last week. I had the highest attendance, and I thought I wasn't expecting that, because a lot of our face-to-face activities have actually started again. But people were like, no, we just want to check in because it means I can see somebody from Ballyclare, or I know that I'll chat to somebody in Downpatrick. So again, we'll keep those up 4 times a year. And I'm enjoying them, you know, because it gives me a chance to maybe meet with people virtually that I wouldn't be seeing as often. And our services do take great pride in putting on specific activities for their own volunteers locally. Downpatrick had done a lovely barbecue there in June for their volunteers. Now we got 3 people turned up, and that was similar to yourself, Ian. I think that was a great opportunity. Small group came, but they really enjoyed it. And we had like bubble, as Gert, one of our staff members, does the bubble therapy thing. So we had that. It was outside. It was really lovely. So it's relying on I suppose the kindness of staff as well, and what they can offer. And pulling stuff together, but we're very excited about December. Hopefully it happens. Hopefully it actually falls the same day as your conference, conference. Yeah. But I wasn't aware that the 5th was the International Volunteers Day, so I'll be using that as a bit of a tag. For social media and stuff.
Great. It's interesting in terms of people maybe getting more comfortable with Zoom as well. Those that have been using it and happy to use it. And I suppose in terms of knowing the profile of your volunteers, what we've been hearing is that some older volunteers are less reluctant to come out of the house now because they've got comfortable in the house and they've got comfortable with technology. So they're using it, and then other people that just can't wait just to drop the technology and get back out face to face again. So it is about knowing your volunteers. Matthew, Matt, can I pick on you, please? Can I pick on you, please, just in terms of that engagement and, you know, from your comms background, maybe in relation to how you communicate with volunteers and you know, thinking about the videos, because we did, Volunteer Now did wee videos for Volunteers Week in not this year past, the year before that, and then decided to do something different. And there was a lot of wee videos, and we've been hearing that videos, particularly those 30-second ones, really short and sweet, are the way to go in terms of keeping interest there and maintaining some kind of communication. But it's all about doing them right. And some people think, I think what Tracy was saying, you know, was interested in terms of what it has. Some people think it has to be perfect, and that's not what we're hearing. It's about the messaging that goes in behind it, even though the quality of the video mightn't be 100%. But I would just be keen to hear your thoughts.
I can't really offer any practical examples because we are externs at a very, very early stage in our volunteer journey. We launched our volunteer, so you have to excuse me, I'm just back from the dentist, so
volunteer, sorry.
Excuse me. Yeah, we only launched our volunteer recruitment campaign back in May, and we really didn't have much presence with volunteers. We had a few individually at local project level. We're an Ireland-wide organisation with about 60 projects in about 50 locations in 27 counties and across 22 jurisdictions. So it's a bit of a logistical thing trying to get all that coordinated. We are now just at the point where our very first set of volunteers are completing training and induction and are hopefully going to be sort of allowed to fly the nest in the next sort of few weeks or month. So we don't really have anybody in place yet, but we're working, we have a steering group that meets every month, and we're working on how we are going to adopt all of these things that everybody has been talking about. We do shoot sort of short videos in communications, you know, for recruitment and things like that, for like actual employed recruitment. You know, little 30 to 45 second videos where we get people just talking to camera about why they joined Extern, what they got out of it, why we're so great to work for. So we very much intend to adapt that model to volunteers once they've had a chance to bed in and get into the roles, hopefully in sort of into the new year. So yeah, I mean, they can be very sort of cost effective. We don't have a big comms budget in Extern, so we're learning to shoot videos ourselves a lot more. You know, we do them on our smartphones with a microphone attached. And, you know, the sound quality, image quality maybe isn't good as a professional job, but still pretty good, you know, and it does give that ring of authenticity as well. In terms of celebration events, we are also now starting to talk about how we are going to recognise those first volunteers. So next summer, we're hoping that one of our, we have sort of youth respite facilities, which have outward bound stuff at them. We maybe do something down there, get everybody down there in a bus. So yeah, from a comms point of view, it's very, very early days for us in terms of communicating, but all of the ideas that we've been hearing there, newsletter, you know, email, social media, are all things we intend to adopt as and when our volunteers are bedded in and we start having material we can gather.
Great, thank you very much, Matthew, and I hope the mic gets better soon. Sorry about that. Liz?
It's just a quick one. We, pre-COVID, we were very much face-to-face with our volunteers, so we would have a lot of personal contact with them. And obviously things changed. And for this year's Volunteers Week, it was very, very basic. But because a lot of our staff were actually working from home, we got staff to take a photograph of themselves holding up a piece of paper that said "thank you for," and it would either have a message or just, you know, sort of very simple. And we just literally put that together in a bit of a montage film and sent it out to volunteers, and we've never done anything like that, and they absolutely loved it. I think partly because obviously they hadn't seen many of the staff for such a long time, but just with some of those little messages, you know, that were a little bit more personal, it went down really well. And it was no Hollywood production, and as I say, the value seemed to, you know, be really much than we expected.
Probably one thing I should have said, sorry, is that the nature of the work that Extern does, we work with people who are extremely vulnerable. We work with people who are ex-offenders coming out of prison, you know, and that includes sex offenders, violent offenders. we work with people who are very severe problem, drug and alcohol use, chronic homelessness, that kind of thing. So while the volunteers we're recruiting so far aren't necessarily working in those projects initially, we will hope to have volunteers in those projects. And that may pose challenges because the people who kind of work, and I know from the social workers we have, the staff working in those projects, they don't like to talk about what they do. They maybe don't always want to identify that they are working with people like that. So we sort of see that as maybe being something we need to look at going forward. You know, maybe volunteers don't actually want to talk about what they do. They don't want to have their face on camera. It might be okay for some of our softer projects working with young people, but a significant proportion of what we do is very, very cute, difficult, not very media friendly. So that's a challenge we're going to have going forward. The comms team just kind of working out the parameters of what people want to say, celebrating them without maybe having to put their face on camera or something like that. So
thank you. I know we did one last year as well. We did a hats off, and very similar to what you were saying, Liz. And it took forever. See, in our house, it took forever trying to get somebody to video it for me, and then to get something that I'd be happy to share, because it was just like, it was so cringeworthy. But yes, people loved it whenever it went out there. Brita?
Yes, Jane, I just wanted to share another idea. When I think of Volunteers Week, again, this was pre-COVID, but we have complementary therapy on site here, and we have 4 specialist therapists. So we gave everyone an appointment. This was all on site. So every volunteer got a wee therapy, and each of the therapists delivered on the other therapists. And it was a lovely way of for them to get to know each other, because we find here that our core team give a day a week or an evening a week, and everybody has busy lives and their own careers as well. And sometimes the connection isn't there, but this was a lovely way of doing it, especially in the volunteer week. So everybody, as I say, enjoyed a lovely massage and reflexology and got to know the other volunteers by doing that. And again, there's no expense because our therapists are very willing and capable and in-house anyway. So it turned out a lovely event for everybody, and everybody's very relaxed and enjoyed.
Very good. That's lovely. And Ian?
Yeah, just to go back on the whole video thing, I'm fortunate that we've got a decent sized comms team that I can link in with, and they can do all the sort of putting together of videos and putting music on them and things like that. So, you know, they've been out and they've done sort of short video clips of myself, volunteers and staff, and they've put sort of recruitment videos together. But similar to the hats off thing and I think befriending week last year, we did something where I think there was 6 or 7 of us. We did a 20-second piece to camera holding up a why we think volunteers are fantastic type of thing, and then sent all our little clips into our comms team, and then they put it together as a 45-second, 1-minute sort of video. And I didn't have to worry about all of that technology. I just had to provide my 20 seconds or whatever it was. So, but I do think, you know, these sorts of ideas of videos, these short, snappy videos, is probably the way forward. Like a lot of us, I haven't attended too many sort of physical recruitment fairs or freshers fairs this year. And what I've been finding is student union reps have sort of contacted me and said, do we have sort of leaflets and things like that? Or do you have a short video clip we can share with the students? So we've just worked on something. I did a 10-15 second voiceover for a clip, and it's now something I've got at my disposal that I can share as a recruitment tool. So I think I'm trying to get volunteers involved if they're prepared to sort of sit down and talk to us on camera. Again, using those and putting those as clips together for future events.
Great, thank you, Ian. And I just want to bring in Catherine from Brestival, just in terms of that event volunteers and recognition. Catherine.
Absolutely. So yeah, apologies, my camera's being a little issue or having issues today, which is funny because technology is my background. I suppose for us this year, or over the last 2 years, we were entirely a 1-day in-person event. And then with the immediacy of having to change all of our plans last year to go virtual and expand it then to a full week event, it was a real changeover in relation to volunteers. And it was something that we weren't used to giving back to volunteers digitally. We always had the free t-shirts for whenever they attended the session to be visible to people, lanyards and all those sorts of things. So when we moved over to digital, and in particular this year, we wanted to look at a few different ways that we could recognise them. So we had things like Facebook frames, where they were able to be identified as a Breastival volunteer, which worked really, really well, not just for them and seeing that they were happy to have that on their page, but also it was a really good marketing campaign for us as well, because people were going, oh, what is this? Or asking questions, and we were able to improve engagement through that as well. Tying back to the videos as well, it's about utilising the stuff that you already have. I mean, we obviously, moving online, we recorded all of our sessions. And we were able to then utilise that information to produce more times of recognising who our volunteers were. So we have the Badass Breastfeeder of the Year, and this year award, and it went to one of our volunteers this year, Ruth Young, who not only volunteered her time supporting other parents, but also volunteered to take sessions as well. And it's about tying all of that in together and then utilising it down the line so that people are engaging with that again. What we are doing this year is similar to the lines of the certificates and sending out to all of our volunteers for certificates. We are working with the businesses that supported us and sponsored us during the sessions to have discounts specifically for volunteers, and tying that in as well. But as we go forward, we're looking at hybrid, and particularly because Breastival does bring in families that are in the early stages of parenthood. They're more anxious about being around other people, not just because of COVID, but because a baby cries, or they are emotionally sensitive at those times as well. So what we're doing is we're listening to our volunteers and pulling in their ideas and running regular sessions now to ask them what they want, because they are key to what we do. And I think the recognition comes down to not just prizes and support and stuff like that there, but recognizing that they are key to everything that we do. And that's why we are now able to have, I'm now an employed member of staff now, the first out of nearly 6 years of Breastival, because our volunteers are so passionate that this is something that they need. So yeah, so recognizing everything about them, not just that they did something, recognizing their voices.
Thank you, and congratulations on your post, Catherine. But yes, I like the Facebook frames idea. I never would have thought about that. That's really nice.
And it's something that's really simple to do. I mean, by utilising technologies like Canva, which obviously for non-profits is free to use the pro version of it. There's some really, really amazing templates that are really easy to use. And if anybody does want any support in that there, feel free to give me a shout, because I'm happy to support any other charities that are involved in that or would like to do that sort of thing.
Is that the kind of things that they have for, like, I've got my COVID vaccine and stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, all right. What sort of things would you, I missed that, so what sort of things would you put in those frames? Would it say, like, I'm a volunteer, or?
Yeah, so we had 5 different frames that we had. So we had a Breastival board member, we had Breastival volunteer, Breastival speaker, and Breastival attendee. So it was able that we had the brand recognition from the colouring and things like that there, but it also, people were asking questions underneath it. Breastival, what's that? Or how do I get involved? That's really exciting. And we were able to pull that information back as well. And then we saw the numbers increase, and I think we ended up with about 150 people using just the attendee ones. And we were able to secure down that only people that were speakers got a link to how to get that. So there was security attached to that as well.
That's really interesting. Yes, thank you, Catherine. Thank you. And yes, it is interesting in terms of the branding, conversations in relation to the t-shirts and the lanyards and things that you would have given out before to volunteers, and yet you can't really see them. And it's about how you make the top half of you, look branded, or else your background. And I've seen volunteers and organisations having backgrounds for their, so that they are branded whenever they're on Zoom. And it's given them those wee pieces of technology and links to things that they can use so that they feel part of the organisation and feel valued as that organisation, I suppose, as a volunteer within that organisation. So it's about thinking more creatively rather than the tangible things that you can give. But yes, it's yeah, it's all very interesting and different, I suppose. And I think the hybrid model is the way that we're going to have to go for a wee while until we see what the future is going to really look like. But yes, does anybody else have anything they want to share? I'm just conscious of our time. I think that was really useful. I really enjoyed that today. So thank you so much to everybody who contributed. I know I got an awful lot out of it. I'm sure we could continue in terms of those debates around campaigns, and you know, we have been looking at comms and communications within Volunteer Now, and on whether you do have specific campaigns throughout the year for specific things. And we do have Volunteers Week, and it will be from the 1st to the 7th next year. We're not moving it, and I don't think the rest of the UK is going to move it either. But it's from the 1st to the 7th of June. And International Volunteers Day is there from the 5th of December. I'm not sure about Thank You Day as to whether it's going to continue on the 4th of July. It was a one-off this year, and there was conversations about it being a day that was maintained within the calendar. But if there's a appetite for further campaigns or further work or further conversations in around how we recognise volunteers, then we're certainly willing to continue that on. We will send, Andrew, keep me right here, we will send information out after, just in terms of if you want contact details. I know people have shared some contact details within the chat, but if you do want contact details, then we're willing to share if people are happy to give those details over. But if are we happy, any last comments that people want to be in?
Just to say, we mustn't forget to pat ourselves on the back, because International Volunteer Managers Day is the 5th of November.
All right, okay. Okay, I didn't know that. There we go.
It's only because it's the day of, it's my birthday, you see. So you know, it's a double celebration for me.
The 5th of November. That's good to know. That's great. Thank you. Thank you. And thanks very much, everybody, for joining. The recording will be on our website within a few days. So it will be there for everybody, but please do keep in touch if you've got anything else you want to share, or if you've any more thoughts or inspiration that we can share back with everybody again. But thank you very much. We hope you have enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Jane.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Very good.
All right.
That was brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a really good one.
Turned out all right, didn't it? Yeah.
Got on board with it after. I was sitting at, I remember looking at 11:32 and thinking, oh goodness, but it just kept rumbling. So no, that was really good.
Yeah. No, I did the same thing as you. It was just after 11:30 and I went, oh my gosh, we've got half an hour to fill here. And then I was going down through the list going, come on, some of these ones must have really good examples. And it was like, that's why I started picking on people.
Really good. I took a few notes, so I don't know what level you want to share, whether it's just, do we have any, I don't think we have any publications specifically on that, but we could put a wee email out with some of those dates, and then saying if anybody wants contact details for anyone else, just to get in touch with us, and we can then share them that way, as opposed to sharing the full list. And like, I took a few notes there, but I don't know, they've got the recording, so I don't think we need
the recording. I think the key things were in terms of asking, you know, the volunteers what they would like, and then just trying different things in terms of the newsletters, the tea boxes, thank you bags, Zoom sessions, the, you know, more individual tokens in terms of like the hand therapies and, you know, those different types of things, and then the Facebook frames and discounts.
Facebook frames is really clever, actually.
Isn't it?
Yeah. It's just a good way of spreading the word.
Yeah, and then the wee videos, the wee 30-second videos that are good. Yeah.
I'll have a wee think about the best way to format that, but I think everyone else will have probably been writing those as they went anyway.
I'd say so too. Yeah. But it'd just be nice to send out an email to everybody and then thanking Brett, Rita, Sonia, and Kiva as well too.
Sonia, Kiva, and Rita. Yeah.
Rita. Yeah. If you want to throw something by me, Andrea, I'll have a look at it for you.
No bother. That went well.
Yeah.
I got quite a lot of learning from it as well.
Yeah.
I think everyone did. Perfect. There, that's good. Well done.
All right. Thank you. No, thank you very much. Thanks. Talk to you soon. Bye. Bye-bye.